The number of unemployed Filipinos decreased in February. According to the Philippine Statistics Authority, the unemployment rate fell to 3.8% or about 1.94 million jobless Filipinos. This is lower compared to 4.3% or 2.16 million unemployed Filipinos in January. Most Filipinos found jobs in sectors like accommodation and food services. Despite this, the recent Social Weather Station survey reveals that hunger remains high, with 27.2% experiencing involuntary hunger in the past 3 months. And to discuss more on how we can address these challenges, we have with us tonight Executive Director of Rise Against Hunger, Jomar Fleras. Good evening to you, Jomar, and welcome to The Big Story. Our first question, we had the DSWD spokesperson last night on the program, and the figures of the government are different from the SWS survey. Do you find with your work on the ground that the SWS survey is credible with its figures of 27.2% of Filipinos experiencing involuntary hunger?
Well, when that survey came out, the Department of Agriculture also declared a rice emergency, a food crisis emergency, because of the rising cost of rice. As you know, we're the number one importer of rice in the world. We even outrank China, which is, I don't know exactly how many billions of people they have. We only have like a population of 115 million, and yet we outrank China. So since rice is a staple food of the Filipinos, I think that's the main cause of the hunger situation. Another thing, in the field, we also noticed that the prices of vegetables actually went down. But then that actually has a very negative effect on the farmers, because there's like tomatoes went down to as low as 5 pesos. They ended up throwing away tomatoes. And how can we help our farmers? Because poverty and hunger is actually in the rural areas and in the agricultural sector.
So the situation is very serious, and yet we have this government agency seemingly, I wouldn't say dismissive, but not attuned to the reality on the ground.
Well, other UN agencies say otherwise. For example, UNICEF said that 95 Filipino children die daily because of hunger and malnutrition. The UN report also said that there are about 51 million Filipinos who are food insecure. We're actually the most food insecure country in Southeast Asia. So these studies by surveys by SWS are short term. Maybe the longer term studies are done by DSWD. And sometimes it really depends on the sampling size that they do. But we're more confident with the UN figures, the UN studies, and of course, what's happening in the field when you see people who are really going hungry.
So, Jomar, what solutions do you propose? I mean, you've been doing this for how many decades now? Uh, Tell us
Well,
what kind
longer
of
term
concern.
solution would be to address the issue of poverty, because that's the main reason why people are going hungry and food insecure. That's poverty. But the solution to poverty is long term. Meanwhile, the government should also come up with programs that are on the short term basis. Like the SWD has this food stamp program, which is, I think, on its testing stage. You also have the school feeding programs, which has to be funded. Recently, we received news from the Department of Education that a lot of this food that was supposed to be served for school children were spoiled and were lost. No, sayang, because you're talking about billions of pesos that are not going
Just going to
to the
waste.
mouths of children, where the original budget is supposed to be able to feed them. Another thing is that you have climate change, which affects the agricultural sector. I mean, like maybe mahirap tugunan yung climate change. That the government should look at establishing resilience, especially for the farmers, because the agriculture sector is the most affected by storms and climate change. Uh, about 30% of food that is produced is actually wasted, but that 30% can actually feed all hungry people. So we should strengthen the food banking systems in the Philippines. Like that's what we're doing here at Rise Against Hunger. We're looking at food banking. We're looking at trying to rescue food, surplus food, and reduce food loss, and try to channel this food donations to those who are hungry and most in need.
Jomar, one thing that was interesting when I was looking at the profile of your organization, you're right, Lois. You have one component where you're doing kind of like what the D is doing. My food bank kayo, and people, your participants, your members can, actually, stakeholders can get food from there. Another aspect is food security, where you guys try to help the families actually plant their own food, and it's specific food, kumbaga parang high nutritional yield food. Does that really work? Are families now in 2025, are they really, kumbaga, meron bang something inside them na, sige, magtatanim ako ng sariling food? Uso pa ba yun?
I think it works even in urban areas. We have a project in Taguig wherein we converted 200 square meter unused land into an urban farm. And during the pandemic, it was really opportune that they were able to use that the yields, the harvest from the small farm to at least yung makabawas ng gastos nila sa araw-araw when they have food that they can actually eat. The problem here in the agriculture sector is that most of our agricultural lands are focused in producing cash crops na hindi naman makakain. I mean, you cannot eat copra, you cannot eat coconut. I mean, maybe just one book or something, but it's not our staple food. The farmer should be able to put a portion of their land into planting vegetables that they can eat.
And Jomar, I wanted to get your thoughts on the enactment of a Food Security Act. I mean, how urgent is the need for that now more than ever?
I guess we have a lot of laws that are supposed to be functioning, but the problem is kulang ng pondo. I mean, like any other law that has to be funded, that has to be scaled up, and that needs to be there needs to be buy-in from the private sector. The fight against hunger is not just a fight of government. It should be the concern of the private sector, the NGOs, the religious organizations, the communities. No, dapat tulong-tulong tayo. We have a saying that it takes a village to feed a child, and that village should really be activated. It cannot just be the task of one agency.
And apart from making food accessible and available to a lot of Filipinos and families, I think we should also be talking about making it nutritious for them. So how can we ensure that food still remains nutritious for families?
The sad thing is that hindi sanay kumain ng mga vegetables yung mga bata. I think we should change that yung eating habits of children, especially in the urban areas. Ang hirap pakainin mga bata ng mga vegetables. They'd rather eat yung mga chichirya, no? High in sodium, high in sugar, no? So we can only address nutrition if we change the eating habits of children. We also have to teach our mothers how to cook food properly and how to not overcook. Even simple thing as not to overcook the food so that it maintains the nutrition, no? So it's a long battle, but I think we can do something about it.
Where do you see the hope? It's easy to get discouraged, especially when you go around the country and you see the dire situation of Filipinos. Where is the optimism coming from?
Well, I think optimism comes from the smile of children. No? When we ask them, ano bang impact nung pagkain sa inyo ng feeding program, and they tell you that mas masigla sila pumasok, they look forward to going to school because there's food in the school, and they're able to dream. No, there's the hope there. I think the source of hope should come from the children because we're doing this for them. We're giving them a fighting chance, and when you see that the help that we provided, the food that we provide them, nag-i-improve ang kanilang performance sa school, there's the hope there.
Do you find that the private sector are more responsive? You have big conglomerates contributing to your organization. Do you find that there's more, I guess, civil consciousness among those who have much?
During the pandemic, through Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles, we formed this Zero Hunger Task Force, Filipinas Contra Gutom. So right now, that Filipinas Contra Gutom has become the Kain Tayo Pilipinas. So it's a membership organization wherein you have the private sector, you have the government, you have food manufacturers, you have even the church-based faith-based organizations coming in. So we're putting our heads together to be able to solve this issue of hunger.
One question, Jomar, no? We all heard about that big USAID cut when President Trump took office for the second time around. Natamaan ba, no, yung organization ninyo or other organizations who do the same work as you guys? Because there are actually a lot of NGOs who are targeting hunger reduction.
That's true. Kami personally, we're not affected because we're not USAID funded. But I know of a lot of other organizations in the Philippines that have been affected because they get a lot of USAID funding. Globally, what Trump is doing is actually harming the commodities market because USAID is also one of the major buyers of commodities in the US. So I think in the long term, that will affect the prices of commodities. Tomatoes, basic vegetable items, and that will have its trickle effect. I know for a fact that a lot of countries in Africa are suffering. We also provide funding to food and resources to Africa. Globally, Rise Against Hunger is doing that. And we're finding it more difficult to be able to leverage the food that we do with their programs. So we haven't seen the entire effect of what Trump is doing, but it is not very good.
Okay, and just to circle back, I'm just curious, Jomar, because of the SWS survey where, of course, involuntary hunger hit the highest no, since 2020, 2021 during hard lockdown. I was wondering if you agree with the results. I know Cez kind of asked this, but I'm just really curious kung paano umakyat yung level, no? Kasi from 21% in the previous survey, naging 27%. Any ideas, any kind of guess, educated guess kung saan nanggagaling ito? Because DSWD says it's Visayas and mostly be dragging down that figure because of the protracted eruption of Mount Canlaon.
I think yung climate change ang effect nun eh. We're just seeing the impact right now of climate change because remember, during the last quarter of 2024, we had a series of like 6 typhoons in 1 month. No? So a lot of crops were destroyed. So ngayon pa lang natin na-feel yung impact of that because obviously during the last quarter we had buffer crops, but now because of what happened during the last quarter series of typhoons that really affected the output of the farms, and it's only now that we're feeling that.
All right, thank you, Jomar, for the work that you do. But before you go, can you tell us how our audience can contribute to your organization?
Please visit our website, our Facebook page, Rise Against Hunger Philippines. We have volunteering opportunities there, and we need your help. Again, the task of ending hunger is everyone's concern. It's not just us and not just the government, but everyone should be part of it.
True. And even if it's not monetary, they can do volunteer work.
Yes, we accept volunteers.
Thank you very much. It was Jomar Fleras of Rise Against Hunger Philippines.